Yeah, Graham. So welcome to Business Spectator. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Now, a big change is going on in aviation at the moment. The Qantas deal with Emirates and the Virgin proposal to take over Tiger, or at least to buy 60% of Tiger. Do you think these things will have much of an impact on the travel market?
I think generally most of it, certainly from our point of view, is pretty positive, and I'd like to think from the customer's point of view it looks pretty good as well. The Qantas Emirates, I think it's pretty obvious that Qantas was struggling, particularly in the European market, and Emirates is such a big player there now that an alliance like this, should help both airlines. But I think the speculation is whether Emirates will will start off the dominant player, and will it become really dominant or not is one of the questions. And I think.
What do you think? Will they become more dominant as a result of this deal?
Look, it depends on quite a few things. Certainly from our point of view, there's a few different areas that we need to look at. In other words, what sort of what's our earn on it, and what our incentives are to push which airline. My gut feeling is yes, it's quite likely that Emirates will become quite dominant over time, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for Qantas. I think for that part of the world, being in bed with someone like Emirates is and having tie-ups with the frequent flyers and all the other things is probably a positive for Qantas anyway.
Well, what sort of commissions do each of them pay now?
Oh, look, believe it or not, that's a commercial secret, and it's so secret.
Come on, Graham.
I can't tell you exact figure, but most of these international carriers, we get around the 10% in margin, and with some other incentives that rely on volume and volume growth, that sort of thing. So it does vary a bit airline to airline, but it's in that vicinity.
Graham, whether it's international or domestic, we've seen a lot of capacity coming into the market. I assume that's good for you?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Obviously, there's been an element of deflation over the last 20 years, and that has its positives and negatives. Obviously, the positives is it's cheaper for people to travel. The negatives are that growth targets are harder to get for us. But there's no doubt extra capacity, particularly international, particularly big players like Emirates, has made the international market, particularly to Europe, very competitive and great deals for customers. And domestically, pretty much the same. Even, I think, coming back to a virtually two major owners in the domestic route, but probably 4 or 5 airlines, is probably not a bad thing either. It's a sort of market that with 2 low costs or 2 major low costs and 2 mainstream airlines, I think it's generally going to be good for the market. It's still going to be very competitive. But Australia's a sort of market. It's a pretty big market. I don't think it's a small market, but four airlines competing in different positioning areas, I think is probably pretty good.
Presumably the dollar has also been helpful to you in the last little while.
Yeah, the strong Australian dollar, certainly for outbound, has probably helped us, but we're quite strong in domestic leisure travel as well. So generally we find if the dollar gets weaker, we pick up the domestic, and domestic travel's not cheap, of course, or domestic holidays aren't cheap. So we generally don't do too badly out of that anyway. So if we lose the international because the dollar gets weaker, we're not too worried.
Graham, do you think the Webjet model, which duplicates a lot of what you do, but it's an all-internet model, will eventually replace this very large emphasis you have on physical bricks and mortar branches?
Well, obviously this is a question, whether the online players, including our own online play, will become more dominant than bricks and mortar. And it is interesting, if you look at either North America or Australia, the larger online travel agents seem to be plateauing quite a lot, and our model is what we call a blended travel agency model, where we'll have a seamless interplay between our bricks and mortar and our online, which is typical retail omni-channel type operation. Now we're already 2/3 of the way through this. The actual seamlessness part of it's not there yet, so we've still got a bit of work to do. But I believe this will be a pretty unique offer in Australia, and customers will have a choice. Some customers love online, they'll only do online. There'll still be a lot of offline customers, but I think a lot of customers now like to do some of their stuff online and others offline, or a combination when they're doing a trip. A lot of things are still, travel is one thing, particularly air travel. There's a lot of airfares you just can't get online, and you won't be able to get them online for years because they're so complex. And that's one of the advantages we have as well. But I think you are seeing the trends change from online to more of a to sort of a plateauing of online. There's still movement towards suppliers' websites, but I think the webjets and what ifs, I think they'll reinvent themselves and they'll continue to grow probably, but they're certainly not getting the growth like they have done in the past.
How much of your business is done online now?
Look, I think we do about, this year be about 300 and 350 million in Australia on our Flight Centre site. So probably globally we do about 600 million out of about 14 billion. So relatively small amount, but it's still significant and it's not unimportant. And we are doing more and more transactions online. We'll have more product that will be capable of being transacted online as time goes on. So,
but is the online business growing faster than the shops?
It is at the moment in Australia, just because we have in the last year we've put a lot more international fares online. So it is growing at sort of 25–30% compared to the shops, about 6 or 7% in TTV. So it is at the moment, but that's mainly because of the product we've put on. And we will start promoting it. We haven't really started promoting it yet, so we do expect more significant growth when we promote our offering, particularly in the Flight Centre brand.
Graham, are you concerned that the growth in the online transaction values might undermine the economics of the physical network?
I don't think so. As I said before, with the blended model, we would like it to be to be very much online, offline as much as possible, so that our bricks and mortar people, for example, if you do an online booking, you'll be able to choose a consultant that can help you if there are major problems, such as airline groundings or volcanic ash sort of stuff, or I'm sure we must be nearly ready for another terrorist attack somewhere. So that they will have a person who is dedicated and allocated to you to help you, through your travel arrangements, and I think a lot of people like that.
But your income margin has been stable at 13.9 or 14% for some years now. Are you saying that you're going to be able to keep it at that level as business starts to drift online?
It's a good point, but there's been a whole range of different things that have affected our gross margin at around that 13 to 14%, and it has been pretty stable. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago it went down to maybe 12.9, and the reality is we've been growing our corporate travel quite considerably over the last 10 years, and it is generally a much lower gross margin. So being able to maintain that sort of margin with a lot of corporate in the mix, I think means that unless online becomes a really large part of our business, and I can't see it ever becoming more than 10 or 15%, I don't think the gross margin is going to change a lot at all.
What's your advice to non-food retailers in terms of this online challenge? You seem to be thriving under the hurt from online, whereas the retailers are struggling. What's your advice to them?
Oh, well, I think it's there are a few interesting things here. I think one of the challenges if you're a retailer, particularly if you're in a commodity that can be easily bought online overseas, not having to pay the GST and in some cases sales tax is a major problem for our, and I don't think the government's realised how many retailers, small retailers, actually going to the wall, and a significant part is due to this. And so I think that's one thing that the government's got to sort out. But I think if you look at the so-called omni-channel, there's a few really good examples. Macy's, I think, in the States, and John Lewis in the UK. They've really made some great inroads and had some great success with combining the online-offline experience. And I think if you look at John Lewis, they find that people who shop online and offline, use the omni-channel, they spend something like 3 or 4 times as much with John Lewis as people who shop only online or only offline. So there are a lot of opportunities here, and you can see the retailers, most of the major retailers are trying to catch up with this now, I think the good ones will get there, and the sooner they get there, the more successful they'll be.
Graham, when you look at your presentations, there's always a map in it of your global operations, and what's really noticeable is that you've got a lot of points of representation in the States, but you lose money in the States. How are you going to fix that?
Well, that's a good question. The States we have several major business categories there, mainly corporate, retail and wholesale with our GoGo vacations operation. And we bought Liberty GoGo in, I think we settled February 2008, which was not good timing, and that's been a business that has been tough. We did make profit last year out of that business itself, and our corporate's going pretty well. I think we'll make 10 or 12 million profit in corporate, and we're hoping we'll still make a small but reasonable profit in the retail Liberty GoGo field. So it's been 5 years, and we've still got a long way to go before we'll be happy with the performance of that. And I think last year we wrote off some goodwill associated with our purchase, but we're pretty confident. We've got a good operation. It's just the market is pretty flat in leisure, and corporate's going very well. In the States, there's a lot of unmanaged SME corporate business, so it's not even a matter of having to take market share from someone else. It's just a matter of showing a lot of these SMEs the advantage of some of your offering to win the business, and we've been quite successful at that.
Given that you do have something approaching a global footprint, but Australia represents something like 3/4 of your profitability, has that global strategy not been executed as well as you might have liked?
Look, Australia is a significant part of our profitability and about half our total sales. So we obviously want to get our overseas, and particularly the States, up to the same sort of level. And it's going to take some time to get to that. But if you look at the UK, it's going pretty well at the moment. We're looking at probably over £20 million profit on about £800 million sales, and we certainly want to get the States to a similar sort of area within the next few years. But the overseas offers us a lot of opportunities for growth. So we have such small market share compared to, say, Australia, where in leisure we might have 25 or 30% of the travel agency market share and maybe 20-25 of the corporate. We still see a lot of opportunity in Australia, and we certainly we want to grow the profit of overseas operations. I think that last year they were all profitable in the 10 overseas countries we work out of. But we need a much greater percentage on our sales falling to the bottom line, and that's one of our challenges. But it's also one of the opportunities. But at the same time, we're quite happy for Australia to provide 70 or 80% of our profit as long as its profit's growing as well.
Is it not surprising that in a place like the States, there haven't been majors developed that really take it by the throat and make it quite difficult for you?
Oh, look, the States is a big place, and it's whether it's in leisure. One of our main problems in leisure is that the high street travel agent, which is quite prominent in Australia and the UK, New Zealand, South Africa, has almost ceased to exist. And our Liberty Travel, where we have about 170 shops, is one of the few remaining street front retail shops. And so people sort of don't really know so much that bricks and mortar travel agents still exist, except for marketing by people like us. So that is one of the challenges. And in corporate, there's a lot of big players in the States, but the market is so huge. Obviously people like American Express are based there, and they're a big player, but they focus on companies that are often global mandated and very large sort of companies that we find trouble, even if we win some of those accounts, making money out of them. We do prefer they're generally the smaller, $1 to $10 million accounts, and there's plenty of them in the States. There's plenty of room for growth, even though the States is economically challenged at the moment.
If high street shops disappeared in the States, why wouldn't the same thing happen here?
Well, it is a different marketplace, and I think one of the reasons they went from 44,000, I think, about in the mid-90s to probably about 17,000 today, is that the airlines basically cut all commission almost unilaterally in the late 90s. And it wasn't a very smart move by the airlines, because it effectively destroyed their distribution channel before they had other distribution channels around. And that's where the airlines in the States since then have been really struggling for profitability. It means the low-cost carriers that distribute through websites have got certainly a toehold in there. So I don't think, and I think if you talk to airlines, they certainly could damage their distribution industry, but it's really not in the interests of people who manufacture airfares to destroy their distribution. And I think if you ask them, they would probably say the same thing. They don't like necessarily paying margins, but to distribute your own product, most of the airlines realise it's much more expensive to do it yourself through your marketing and that than have people doing it for you.
Do you think what happened in the States is almost an insurance policy that protects your Australian business?
Look, it's hard to say. It's early days, but I don't think Australia will go the same way as the States. I don't think the UK will. Thomas Cook is shutting a lot of shops, but that's the nature of their particular holiday business, I think. And certainly things are going to go more online. There's going to be, I do believe in the blended model, and I think that will hold up a lot of the offline opportunities as well. And I think there's lessons in most retailers for these omni-channel or blended models in terms of online, offline, and that's what I see as the way of the future, but I could be proven wrong.
Graham, have Chinese carriers taken over as the most aggressive discounters in the market, taken over from the Middle Eastern carriers?
To a certain extent, the China Southern particularly has come into this market fairly aggressively. Their product is still not up to scratch, so they have to be cheaper. So certainly most of the lead-in fares you see to Europe, for example, are from the China Airlines or the China Southern. But certainly value for money, I think the Middle Eastern carriers and Emirates in particular, but Etihad and some of the Asian carriers probably still dominate. But there's no doubt the Chinese will get better.
Are they building market share rapidly?
They're certainly building. They're certainly growing, but it is a part of the market that. It is if you like, the bottom end of the market generally so far, or inbound from China. So It's a very competitive market, but particularly to a place like Europe. But I think the Chinese carriers just make a bit more competition at that bottom end.
Just on airfares, I mean, as you said before, they haven't really changed for 30 years. They've in fact gone down. So how have you kept growing profits, and can you keep doing it?
Yeah, it's one of the challenges when you have such deflation over such a long time, because unfortunately our other costs continue to rise, whether it's wages or rent or even advertising, marketing. So it's been one of our biggest challenges over the last probably 10 years, is how we cater for increased costs where our income our cost of product is basically the same, and the only way you can do it is grow your productivity and grow your efficiency. And we've done that to a certain extent, but we've still got a fair way to go with that. So that's our big challenge. We've got a lot of projects on the go, effectively at growing individual shops and people's productivity and making sure our systems are more and more efficient. So that's work in progress, but very important for us.
Graham, you referred to the unfortunate timing of that Liberty acquisition in 2008. Has that made you gun shy of other big acquisitions?
Look, you learn from every acquisition, and very few of them go smoothly. The Liberty one, it wasn't just the timing. There was probably some other things we could have done, but yeah, we don't know whether we regret it yet. We'll tell you probably in about 5 years' time, because we need to get a good ROI on that investment. But generally we don't need any major acquisitions in most of the countries we operate in. We've got, in most of our countries now, we've got a leisure and a corporate offering, as well as wholesale offering, and we've got a lot of opportunities to grow them organically. Our main aim is, I suppose, to generally grow vertically, and the reason we've maintained our profit pretty well over the last 10 years is that we've managed to become more vertically integrated. We negotiate directly with hotels, obviously with most other suppliers, and we run the wholesale business as well as the retail. So between those three areas, you can capture significantly more margin, and we've still got a little bit of a way to go in vertical integration. We're looking at the possibility of also in the markets that we have a huge amount of business, like Bali, Phuket and Fiji, the opportunities of perhaps ground handling there, which obviously is an extra margin that adds on to the rest of our product that we sell.
I think we'll leave it there. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks for the good questions.